The stars are aligning on and off the field for Deion Sanders in Colorado.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. We're getting an outside episode today, and this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. We're outside today. We're in Nashville, Tennessee. Hit Broadway last night. It was fun. I'm the only one awake in my party, so I'm outside so no one hears me ranting about how good Colorado's looking on and off the field right now, because let's talk about on the field, right? The Colorado Buffaloes have won 8 games for the first time since 2016. Colorado, and it's only the second time in the past 20 seasons that they've won 8 games. They're 8-2 on the year. They've won 4 straight games for the first time since 2020, and everything's clicking, right? They have a clear path to the Big 12 title game. As I have been projecting when I go on Locked On College Football, I've been saying that BYU is going to lose, and BYU dropped their last game against Kansas, which is a little bit interesting that Kansas went from looking like one of the worst teams in the country to being within 2 points of Kansas State, beating number 17 Iowa State, and then beating number 13 Kansas, or beating number 6 BYU. So it's like, okay, what is with this Kansas team? And so I'll say this right now: Kansas is the best 4-6 team in the country, baby. With that being said, the Colorado Buffaloes are hot, right? I think a lot of people got on me for saying this, and it wasn't me saying I didn't think that Colorado was good. This is me going off of what they were saying after the game. So Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, they're like, you know what, we did not play our best game. It was just not what we needed against Utah, and they still won by 25 points. So I think that kind of shows where Colorado's at right now, because for you to win by 25 points, not be on your A game, I think that says a lot. And this Colorado team has improved dramatically on offense. The offensive line it's not the best, right? We're well aware that outside of Jordan Seaton, there haven't been very many bright moments for this group, but they're good enough, right? Isaiah Augusta, he didn't have any big runs, he didn't have a lot of major big runs on Saturday, except he goes 7 for 59, breaks off a 37-yarder. That was huge, right? He has a touchdown. Travis Hunter rushes in a touchdown as well, so the run game got things going a little bit. And then defensively, obviously you don't want to give up 24 points, and there's moments where it's like, okay, you gave up 15 second-half points against a Utah offense that not the best, right? I don't think that anyone's going to mistake this Utah offense for being good. That being said, you still held them. You still outscored them 28-15 in the second half. So not bad at all. And realistically, when you look at what's happening on the field, you're getting, even if it's their best performance or not, you're getting strong performances from both the offense and defense, right? They forced the defense is forcing turnovers at an elite clip right now. They forced 3 turnovers, which I think a lot of people don't realize how good this Colorado defense is. And if you just look at it from a total defense perspective, I think earlier weeks kind of hurt them because obviously it's a bit accumulated, if you will. They ranked 59th in the country, which this is, I mean, a top 60 defense, not bad at all, right? But then when you go look at a little category called turnovers gained, Colorado's 10th in the country, right? Colorado has forced 20 turnovers this season, and I think realistically they are one of the most improved units in all of college football, right? You can't go from being one of the worst defenses in college football to being one of the most effective and not be under consideration for that. They rank 6th in sacks per game. They have 33, which is an average of 3.3 sacks per game. So On the field, things are going great. The offense, we know, can ramp it up at any moment. The defense, as we've seen, is much improved, really stout, and I think both of these next two matchups, I think Colorado should be fine, right? I think Jalen Daniels is Kansas's lone hope to winning this game against Colorado, simply because he's kind of bouncing back now, and I don't really understand why. But against BYU, he didn't have a great game. He was 12 and 19 for 169 yards, and an interception. So it's like, how are they winning these games? Well, a couple, like, it was a little fluky, right? Devin Neal rushing touchdown in the first quarter. BYU's offense, I think, was the problem in this one, right? You only scored 13 points against Kansas. Kansas only scored 2 touchdowns, right? It was 10-13 in the fourth quarter. Then Kansas added another touchdown. So that BYU team always looks fraudulent to me, and this Kansas team, I don't think they're that much better. I think they're just kind of. I think it was a matter of time for BYU to lose more so than Kansas, and the same thing about Iowa State. And so as long as Colorado is on their P's and Q's, they should be fine. Now let's talk about off the field. If you guys weren't aware, Julian Lewis, the 5-star quarterback, who's been committed to USC for like over a year now, he officially backed off his USC pledge. So USC flips Texas A&M quarterback Hassan Longstreet, 5-star, and Julian Lewis, who, as we all know, is Colorado's top target, is on the market. And Colorado has multiple crystal balls in their favor to land him, and I think it's going to work out for them, right? You just look at his recruitment, and Georgia got a late visit. It kind of reminds me when Ohio State got a random, or Maryland, if you will, either one, got a late visits from Jordan Seaton. I think Julian Lewis is just kind of playing a little bit of games here because I think Coach Prime and staff encouraged the games. I'm going to be honest, or maybe he just wanted to take in a really good Georgia game, right? I mean, at the end of the day, like, he's a young kid. Like, why wouldn't he want to go to a Georgia game that's playing against a top 25 opponent? But Colorado is favored to land Julian Lewis. So not only are they thriving on the field, but off the field, they're projected to land their quarterback of the future, which has been the biggest question about this program, because it's like, if they don't land a quarterback of the future, aka Julian Lewis, does Deion Sanders stick around, right? Does he want to stay for a program that is going to have to rely on the transfer portal? I think a lot of signs point to him staying. I think right now the job market, this is for everyone, right? Because I know a lot of people were saying that he says he never wants to leave, and I get that. And Rick George said he's happy here too. No coach is ever going to publicly be like, yeah, I'm here for a little bit and then I'm going to leave, right? Nobody says that. With that being said, we just have to use logic here. There's not going to be any jobs that open, that at least that I can see right now, that are upgrades for Deion Sanders and Colorado, right? Florida State's not going to open because Mike Norvell, they would have to pay him a king's ransom to not coach football. Plus, he already fired a couple members of his staff, so they're giving him another shot to run it back. Florida has already announced that they're sticking with Billy Napier. And then Dave Aranda at Baylor, they're sticking with him as well. Mac Brown at North Carolina, I don't know the deal there, but is North Carolina an upgrade? No. So there's not really any jobs that are opening where I'm like, okay, that's where I'd be worried about. And then unless like Dan Lanning goes to Oregon and Oregon's like, hey, Coach Prime, come on over to Oregon. But I don't foresee Dan Lanning leaving Oregon for an NFL job when he could have left for Alabama and he chose not to. So either way, I don't think there's any jobs open right now or going to open that are intriguing enough to Deion Sanders. And plus the NFL stuff is killing me because I don't think a man can say, like, I have no interest in the NFL. I have no interest in following my sons more than Deion Sanders has, and still be asked about the NFL. I don't get it, but hey, people got to ask the questions, I guess, right? Like, it's almost like a weekly thing now. It's like, okay, Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys lost. Let's ask Deion Sanders about it. Like, what are we doing? Like, Colorado, they're thriving. Needless to say, Coach Prime's doing a great job. Let's talk about how the team graded out, according to PFF, in their win over the Utah Utes. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at 5 Hour Energy. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made just for super fans like us, the fans who are first in the parking lot and the last to leave. We see you. You know what else gets me a bit of Colorado fan fuel this week? The moment when Travis Hunter made a acrobatic catch over like 3 defenders, where it was like, oh shoot, Travis is, let me get out of the sun here. Travis is literally the best receiver in college football, and he does it part-time. So that was my most exciting moment. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart and soul and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help you keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with the 5 Hour Energy, available on 5hourenergy.com. It's shipped nationwide, so make sure to go check them out. This episode of Locked on Buffs is also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So thank you for tuning in, liking, subscribing, following, all that jazz, because the show would not be possible without you guys. So let's dive right in. We're doing PFF grades. I know a lot of people like to base all of their analysis off this. I don't want to base all of my analysis off this, but I do think it's an interesting sort of measure, right? I trust analytics a lot. I don't use them to base my opinions off of anything. I think I use them more as a complement to my opinions. That being said, let's dive into them. I'll go through some that I think are the more important ones. Shedeur Sanders, starting with his passing directions and how he did against the blitz, right? On the day, Shedeur was 30 of 41, completed 73.2% of his passes, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. His completion percentage dropped when he was under pressure. He was 5 of 11, 32.6%. Or excuse me, that happened on 32.6%. 45.5% of his passes were completed. When he was blitzed, he actually did really good. 18 of 23, 78.3%. And then that was when he's not blitzed. When he was blitzed, he was 12 of 18, 66.7%. And overall, a really strong performance. There's no really glowing errors. He was 4 of 7 on deep passes, 4 or 5 on 10 passes, 10 to 19 yards, and then passes 9 yards or less. He was 22 of 27 or 26, excuse me. So overall, a strong day for Shedeur Sanders. I think on a couple of his misses, like the interception to start the game was ugly, but Utah's defense, they're good. They're the best defense in the Big 12 statistically, and I think they showed that on Saturday, right? They were the main reason that Utah was even close to being in that game, and so it wasn't the offense, I can tell you that. Let's go to receiver grades, right? Drelon Miller had the highest overall grade because, Drelon Miller had a career day. He goes 6 catches for 108 yards. He got all 6 of his targets, 1 touchdown. He had an 81.6 overall grade. And they moved him everywhere, right? He was in the slot 15 times. He was out wide a couple of times. And he was at the other wide receiver spot 16 times. Like he did literally everything. 76 yards after catch. I think he's someone who should continue to see their role grow. And I would love to see him incorporated in the run game more. I think Colorado lost sight of the run game a little bit, and that's why they were struggling partially on offense. And I think Drelon Miller is a way to sort of get the run game going back again, right? Even though the run game had some decent moments. LaJohntay Wester was second on the team with PFF grade, the highest graded starter, 70.4. Listen, LaJohntay Wester, obviously you don't get graded for punt returns on the wide receiver category. LaJohntay Wester is a big play waiting to happen, and I think he's probably one of Colorado's brightest or biggest additions, best additions of the season, just because he does a little bit of everything, right? LaJohntay Wester is making plays in the slot, out wide, wherever he needs to be. Colorado can sort of, granted he didn't play out wide, but you know what I mean? Like they could put him anywhere and anywhere, and he's going to sort of make a play for Shedeur Sanders. That punt return for the touchdown, I think, was kind of the play that got Colorado back into the game, and which is the second week in a row that LaJohntay Wester touchdown has gotten Colorado back into the game, because last week against Texas Tech, it was a little bubble screen, I think it was, to LaJohntay that got Colorado on the board and sort of calmed the storms that was the Texas Tech offense, who was up like 13-0. So LaJohntay Wester, really good. Travis Hunter, 65.6. He played, he caught 5 of 7 passes. I think him and Shedeur struggled to connect at times. I think the defenses know they want that Colorado wants to go to Travis, so they really key in on him. LaJohntay had 54 yards after catch. Travis had just 11. Not the best day for Travis in terms of everything, right? His average yards, his average route ran was not great. It was 1.1. So clearly they were just trying to get Travis underneath. It was 1.2, their average yards per route ran, excuse me. He did have a contested catch, though, and I think his contested catch was one of the brighter moments of the game, where it's fourth and 8, I believe it was, and Shedeur launches a pass that goes nearly 30 yards, and you're like, oh no, what are we doing? Well, I think it was a penalty, so it didn't really matter. 2, it's Travis freaking Hunter, right? You just throw that thing up, and he's going to come down with it. So really strong performance from Travis. Overall, I think he made the most out of what was probably going to end up being a quieter day from him. And then Will Shepard, 61.7. He had 2 touchdowns. So not the best grade, but he had 2 touchdowns. And so when in doubt, throw it up to Will Shepard or Travis Hunter, and things will probably be okay. Let's go over to the pass blocking, or we'll just go to blocking in general. The highest graded blocker overall, and this is, I think, we'll start with pass blocking, was Kareem Harden. He had 85.9, an 85.9 grade. Didn't allow a sack, a hit, or a hurry. Was playing a lot of right guard. Was 25 snaps of right guard. Really well. Cash Cleveland right behind him in the pass blocking department, 82.6. Same thing, no sacks, no hits, no hurries. The walk-on center is ending up being one of the best additions for Colorado as well. I think for whatever reason, Hank Zelinkas has kind of gotten the yips when it comes to snapping. And there was one fumble in the exchange, but that was on Shedeur. He dropped it. I think he was looking away before he had the ball. Khalil Benson had a solid day. Played 21 snaps, 14 passing, 7 run. He had an 82.5 grade. And then this is where the rest of the offense line finished up. Phillip Houston, 73.1. Justin Mayer, 68.7. Jordan Seaton, 65.2. Tyler Brown struggled, 57.2. And then running backs, Isaiah Gustav, Dallin Hayden, 45.7, 27.1, respectively. The one sack, or there's 2 sacks on the day. One was credited to Phillip Houston, and then the other was credited to Dallin Hayden. So clearly, not a bad showing for Colorado, though, right? It was the best. That was the best pass rush I think they faced all year. And then I think we continue to see a trend when it comes to teams sacking Shedeur Sanders, right? It's not always the offensive line's fault. So that means, because he was sacked 3 times. So one of those 3 sacks was not a credit to the offensive line, which, doesn't shock me, because I do think that Shedeur struggles with holding on to the ball. Run blocking, only Phillip Houston had a grade of 65 or higher. Well, Tyler Brown did as well. He was exactly 65. So those 2 guys were the only ones that were, I guess, generating a push in the eyes of PFF. So need to see that improve, right? So let's go defensively. Overall grades. The highest grade overall was Tawfiq Thomas, 80.5. Cameron Simmons-Craig, shocker, 76.1, comes in at number 2. Tawfiq Thomas had 3 tackles, a sack, 2 hurries, and an assist, and a stop. So he was locking it down in the front there. Cameron Simmons-Craig had 7 tackles. BJ Green comes in right behind him at 75.6. 2 hits on the quarterback, 1 hurry. Chidozie Nwankwo right below him, 73. The 3 sacks on the day went to Amari McNeil, Shedeur Sanders, who had a forced fumble. That was a pretty big hit. Amari McNeil had 3 stops, 66.5 overall grade. Shedeur Sanders, 65.8. Arden Walker, who I thought honestly was the star of the game for me, or one of the stars of the games. A sack, a hit, 2 hurries. a tackle. Like he was doing it all. The lowest grade on the team on defense, surprisingly, was Samuel Kunalola. Granted, he's just not. He played 43 snaps, and only 8 of them were on the run. So I think they kind of take him off. So when he's not getting to the quarterback, because he really wasn't. He had 0 sacks and a hit. Like, I mean, it's hard to get a solid grade when you're doing that. But overall, PFF grades aside, I think this Colorado team is showing that they got depth, which November is a test of everyone's depth. It's like, okay, who's healthy in college football right now? No one. So who has depth in college football right now? And those are the teams that are going to continue to win. Those are the teams that are going to continue to stand out. And right now, Colorado is one of those teams. When we come back, I'm going to be previewing the Kansas game a little bit and talking about what you need to know. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. Let me talk to you about FanDuel, because if you're not getting in on the action with FanDuel, you need to right now. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers could bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This episode of Locked On Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at Game Time. Let me tell you about Game Time, because it's my perfect place. It's my favorite place to get tickets, and it's the perfect place to do so. They have Game Time picks, which makes it easier to get tickets on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever it is near you. They have all-in prices. You can use this feature that shows a total up front, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. So you get a seat view, so you get a little panoramic view from your phone. You can be like, oh, what would I see from this? I love that feature. And their lowest price guarantee. Or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. Like I said, we're live from near Broadway in Nashville. Appreciate you guys for tuning in with me and fighting through the background noise, if there is background noise. There's a little bit of traffic behind me, but it's Broadway, baby. Where else would I be? Okay, let's talk about Kansas. So the Jayhawks, I think, for one, have to be considered one of the most disappointing teams in college football, right? They started the year sort of, I think people saw them as a dark horse Big 12 contender. Let's just put it that way, right? Kansas starts the year, and it's like they're ranked, first of all. They're ranked 22nd. They win against Lindenwood, and everyone's like, oh, Kansas, keep moving them up, 19th. Then they lose to Illinois, which is a quality loss. Then they lose to UNLV. Quality loss, but still UNLV. Then they lose to West Virginia, TCU, Arizona State. Like they started off the season 1-5, and then luckily Houston stumbles into town, and so they beat up on Houston. And then Kansas State, they go rivalry game. They go to Kansas State. They lose that game by 2, which they had a chance in the fourth quarter. They had a late lead, actually. Right, it was 27 to 23, and all of a sudden Kansas State scores 2 field goals in the fourth quarter, and Kansas was never able to answer. So then after that, they beat Iowa State. They beat BYU. So this Kansas team's a little bit all over the board. What are they like? What do we need to know? Well, one, Colorado is viewed as a 3-point favorite, even though they're on the road. According to the odds makers over at ESPN, Colorado also has a 54.5% chance of winning this game. Kansas having a 45.5%, according to the FPI. Last 5 for Kansas, they've won 3 out of their last 5. For Colorado, they've won 4 out of their last 5. The game's going to be played at Arrowhead Stadium. 49 degrees is the weather we're getting right now. Realistically, I think Colorado wins this game. However, I do think it's interesting. Kansas has been 3-point underdogs, I think, each of the past few weeks, and it's sort of, I don't want to say worked in their favor, but they weren't underdogs by many. They're underdogs in their past couple games. Against Iowa State, they were 2.5-point underdogs, and then against BYU, they were 2.5 point underdogs. So clearly the odds makers are liking what they're seeing from Kansas. I don't really know if Kansas can keep up with Colorado. I think the difference between the past 3 games for Kansas is BYU's offense went stagnant. Iowa State's offense, they put up 35 points, but that's very deceptive because Kansas was leading 38-13 in the third quarter until Iowa State scored 14 unanswered. So, they scored 15 unanswered because they went for 2. So this Kansas team, offensively, they can't keep up with Colorado. Defensively, I think Jalen Daniels and Devin Neal will be a solid test for Colorado's run defense. I trust them fully, right? We've seen Colorado stop UCF, who is the number 1 run offense in college football. And against Kansas State had their way, I think, in the run game a little bit, but Colorado was still in that game. They still should have won that game. So I'm picking Colorado to win this game. I'll have more score predictions and more Kansas coverage as the week goes on. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, so make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. I will see you guys tomorrow. Same spot, same place. Hope everyone has a great start to your week.